Alright, last night my attempt to use this piece of sheet metal to help guide the seals in without damaging them on the threads failed. I was able to get it part of the way in and then it would stop and get stuck. And I think my problem is that this is too thick. This is a lot thicker than the shim stock that they recommend you use in the wear service manual and parts manual. So what I've done is I fabricated I took some soda pop cans and I cut them up to make some improvised shim stock. Problem is that, as you can see, because of the circumference of the can, one can cut is not going to cover the whole thing, so I'm going to use two of them and layer them up. Hopefully that'll work. Okay, now I've got it partially started and I've got the cans in there, so hopefully that'll protect the seals from those threads and allow this to slip in. Oh, it's not working. I just got it in and then it stopped dead and was jammed in there, and then I had a real hard time getting it back out, so I'm backing it back out to see what happened. Oh, alright, that was disastrous, or could have been disastrous, so lesson learned, not to try that again. The metal on the cans is actually too thin. It actually completely got pushed into the threads and jammed up in there, and then at some point when I was pushing in or pulling out, a piece actually folded over and ripped. And that's certainly not something we want to get into the hydraulic system. That little sliver of metal there could really do some damage to the pump. Alright, well, plan B, I've decided to forego the whole idea of the shim stock and everything, and I've just loaded it up with a ton of lubricant, grease, and hopefully that'll protect the seals well enough as I wiggle it in. Well, it's going, but I think now the grease is making such a good seal that I'm compressing air in here because it's actually kind of like bouncing back out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this line right here, and that'll let any air trapped in the cylinder come out. Oh, I've been at this for quite a while now, and I am just having a heck of a time getting these chevron seals to go past those threads. So I've tried banging on it with the sledgehammer on the end here, but I really can't get a good straight connection. And it seems like the only way I was able to get it in that far was by putting a pipe in here and turning it. So I'm literally almost like screwing it in past the threads. And I shudder to think what that might be doing to those chevrons in there. Those sharp threads might be cutting the hell out of them, but at this point now, I'm just so disgusted. I want to just get the thing back together, and if it doesn't leak on the end here, hopefully the seals will work well enough that I could still use the machine. So, since I can't get this in any further now, at this point I've decided to resign myself to the use of brute force. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find something that I can back up to this and somehow figure out a way to push this in. I haven't really figured out how I'm going to do that yet. Ooh, now I got to come along on there, and I still can't get it to go in. Got it in further, but now it's stuck again. Something's very wrong. I'm worried that one of the lips on one of those chevrons has flipped over and it's bound in there. I don't know. I'm going to try a little bit more, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to pull the whole thing out and rethink my whole attack here. Backing this back out now, and I see now that I've completely torn up these chevron seals. So, a lot of good. All that work was for nothing. Of course, now I can't get this nut off because I restaked it, so I'm going to have to grind it. I'm getting sick of doing this shuffle back and forth. I think I'm just going to hook the wagon up and bring a generator over here. The last couple times I needed electricity out in the field, I used the old Coleman generator, but decided to fire up the old Makita because I haven't run it in a while. Seems to be running well. Well, I ground my stake marks off and was able to get this nut off, since I had just tightened it on with the breaker bar. Now we can take this apart and see the damage. This backing ring actually looks like it's still okay. This very next chevron is really stuck on here. And I'm going to need a screwdriver to pry this one off, I think. Yeah. Another thing is, if I didn't already have enough difficulties here, this gland thing unscrewed, so this came apart. This whole seal pack, and I can't screw this back in on the rod, so I'm going to take that off and do that again. Well, I've damaged all of the seals. There isn't one, well, maybe the backing ring here is the only item that I might be able to reuse. The rest of it's trashed. This is real bad. Even this rubber piece has got damage on it now. The original set is trash also. This one's really chewed up. One of these looks like it may have folded over when they were installing it originally. This one right here. This actually looks like it folded over on itself. Thought of maybe using my piston ring compressor when I go to put this back together with new seals next time, but realized the limitation here is that I can only go this deep before it hits this bracket, and then of course the problem at that point is going to be that that'll only be about halfway through the threads, so that's not going to work. Okay, it's been a week and I'm back to working on trying to get this cylinder in. I bought all new packings again, all over again. They didn't have one of those white neoprene or whatever it was packing, so they gave me another type and they said it would work just fine. And so now I got all new packings on here. I greased up the oil ring and put this all back together, tightened it down really tight, re-staked it. I've got this top nut with the packings all put back together and on there, all ready to go. And I cleaned out all of the debris from the threads to make sure that nothing gets pushed into the tube and ends up in the hydraulic system. I searched high and low. I couldn't find brass shim stock anywhere without ordering it online and having an additional delay and quite an additional expense. So I decided to see what else I could find out there, and then I finally settled on local Home Depot 6-inch by 10-foot roll of flashing. Now, the original manual called for brass shim stock 13 to 15 thousandths thick. This stuff is thinner. 26 gauge sheet metal is too thick, because I tried sheet metal before. That failed. And it wasn't pliable enough. I could buy sheet aluminum and cut a piece like this size out of the sheet aluminum, but the sheet aluminum was more expensive to buy it that way. So I decided to go with this. Let's see if we can get a reading on it. I'm not moving it around too much, but I don't know if you can see that. It's showing around 7 thousandths, but my gauge isn't zeroed out, so you can see add 2 thousandths, so it's about 9 or 10 thousandths thick. So it's thinner than what I would like, but I'm willing to try it because it's certainly thicker than the aluminum can that I tried to use, and that failed. And if I have to, I guess I could try and double this up. So now there's the sleeve, but I think I'm gonna cut some tabs and bend them up so that when I push in, the sleeve doesn't want to go all the way in. Alright, so now I've got all the tabs bent over, so hopefully as I push in it'll want to not go all the way in. And now I gotta lube it up, and I decided instead of using that heavy grease that I was using, I'm going to use some motor oil. Alright, this shield over here failed, so I gave up, pulled it back out, and it started to cut into one of the new packings again a little bit. So I'm stopping there, and I'm going to turn this over to a professional. Gonna take this cylinder off completely and have the thing put in for me, because I just don't want to run the risk. It costs me $30 every time I wreck these packings. I did it once already. I don't feel like doing it again. And I'm having trouble driving that pin out at the top there. The pin on the right's the lower pin that was well greased. I'm using that as a drift to drive out the one that was in there. And the reason why I'm having such a hard time, as you can see, it's bone dry, which is a shame because there's a grease fitting right there. So I can't see why they couldn't have just occasionally pumped a little grease in there. That would make this come out a lot easier. Well, I'm undoing the other hydraulic line here, and here's another line that's got Teflon tape all over the threads, which whoever put this together obviously didn't realize that this type of fitting, Teflon tape on the threads isn't going to do anything for you, because the sealing surface isn't the threads. This is a compression fitting, so the mating surfaces that actually get pulled together and keep it from leaking are down inside there, nowhere near these threads. If you've got leakage past these threads, then your fitting's already got problems. So putting Teflon tape is senseless. And not only that, I don't really like tape so much in this kind of a situation, just because you don't want little pieces of the tape to fray off and get inside the system. I mean, if you do have a situation where you're using Teflon tape, then you kind of want to apply it in a way so that you don't have any frays that are going to be on the inboard side of that connection. And if I was a real pro, I would cap these lines off to keep water from getting in there with special caps and plugs made of plastic that are perfect fit. Since I don't have those, I just use these nitrile gloves. Kind of make a little hydraulic prophylactic out of it, just to keep any possible rainwater or condensation from getting in there.